I'm so glad you are here for another episode of the Happy Whole You podcast. And today I have a guest, Miss LauraAura. She is a dynamic keynote speaker, a mindset coach, and she is the host of the Gutsy Podcast. And it is a top 100 show that inspires listeners to own their true desires and make gutsy moves to get them going. All right, you guys, through her activating speeches, LauraAura teaches her audiences how to cut through the mind junk, gain clarity, and take action without overthinking or overcomplicating their next steps. As a visionary, LauraAura is the first to nudge you out of your comfort zone, and she wants you to do what your heart desires. So here we go, you guys. She's a great guest. I got so excited with this episode, so much energy and so many great tips. So here we go. LauraAura, thank you for joining me today on the Happy Whole You podcast.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
This took a little time to get you on and, get us together, but I'm so glad that you're here so we can talk about some mindset stuff. Being gutsy and your whole brand it's fabulous. I absolutely love it.
Thank you. I believe in divine timing, and we have the conversation when we are supposed to. So we're not here by accident.
Amen, sister. Amen. I love that. Well, share with everyone just a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What's the difference you want to make in the world? And yeah, let's start there.
I love that. So I'm LauraAura. I'm a keynote speaker and a coach, and I help people make the gutsy moves that change their life. I got to tell you, the thing that keeps me up at night the most, the thing that rattles my soul the most is watching people settle. Just dealing with things. Just this is the way that it is. And it's often because it feels hard or feels scary, or I don't know what to do, or I don't have the right support system around me. And in comes LauraAura. Because I'm like, there are always ways to break free from the crap that you don't really love. Right? To go after the things that you want. And so the difference that I truly believe in my whole heart and soul that I was put on this earth to do is to shatter the norm, right? Is to shake people up, to let them know that they don't have to deal with things or settle for things, that the thing that you really want is actually behind the gutsy move that you're avoiding. So if we can start making gutsy moves, which are small things like getting out of bed when you're feeling down about yourself, to big things like changing a career or asking for a raise, and everything in between. So quick backstory. I owned a branding agency for 16 and a half years. That's where I started my career. And it was through that agency that I found that speaking was actually kind of tugging at me. Coaching people, consulting people was tugging at me. So I started to interview people. I launched a podcast, which is the Gutsy Podcast. And I ultimately got to a fork in the road where I had to decide, am I going to keep branding or am I going to go all in on speaking? Because honestly, I was bitter with myself that oh, this whole speaking thing's not working. Nobody wants me to be a speaker, when I had one toe in. I didn't even have a foot in. I just had
you weren't even all in. It's like, who's gonna hire you when you're not all in? I'm an employee who's not all in.
Yeah, when I would just tap into it and then leave, I'm like, well, of course it's not working, Laura. So it's been a year. I sold my agency and went full time as a speaker. And I freaking love this work. So here we are today.
Oh, I love that for you. I absolutely love it. Okay, so for you, it sounds like you had that inner knowing, that tugging of you were more and more out of alignment. I'm using my words, not yours, but
yep.
But I can relate to this on so many levels, because I literally, for about 2 to 3 years, maybe even 4 years before I left my 18-year career, secure, tenured, paychecks just coming in, retirement, health insurance. And I knew in my heart of hearts, I had to move on. And I was like, I finally had to draw the line in the sand. I was like, when I turn 40, game on, I'm shifting gears and I'm stepping into what I do full time now. But what's interesting and what I talk about on this podcast is how our physical body is giving us signs that we need to make a change. And so I'm curious to ask you, were you having any health things going on during the time that you were kind of like, I'm listening, but it'd be very hard to do this. And you're kind of tipping back and forth. Anything going on there for you?
You mean the season when I developed PCOS?
Oh,
The season when I gained 40 pounds seemingly overnight? The season when my thyroid went off the freaking wall? Yeah, there was a couple of things where my body was like, no, thank you, ma'am.
yeah.
We are not in alignment is a word that I use as well. So we're very much in alignment there together. It was like my body was screaming at me. And then even just to go a step further, just those like intuitive nudges, we are all intuitive, right? And
1000%.
everyone can take that however that resonates with you, but we all experience it differently, right? How I feel my intuition might be very different than how you do. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else for it to be right.
Right.
And so I would always get these like, I'm a very like gut centric gal in a lot of different ways. Oh, that was another bodily function. My gut is that's a whole story in its own. But my gut check was like, I was just always feeling like this sinking feeling, this dread, this something's not quite right. It's time to make a change. But my mind was like,
Right.
this is all we've ever known.
Right.
This is what we've spent the last 20 years building.
Yeah. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, this is what I'm known for. This is what my career is in. This is what my degrees are in. Like, how dare you throw all this away? And it was like, well, so yes, my body spoke very loudly, and I had to start listening.
So are you open to letting me break down some of the things that you shared in terms of your body? Okay.
Let's do it.
So first of all, when it comes to our reproductive health and how that emotionally can relate, that's you not stepping into your creativity.
I believe that.
Then when we go up to your thyroid, this is you communicating, speaking your truth, feeling like you're being heard. And the fact that you are a speaker, and you're not just a speaker, you are a keynote speaker. Girl, your thyroid was like, I am going to shake you up until you listen. And then if we go to the gut health is all about processing life, dealing with mental and emotional demands. And then we go into the 40 pounds, gaining weight. I'm trying to protect myself. I'm trying to not let anyone see me, even though consciously you're like, I need to be like, or unconsciously you're like, I need to be seen. Consciously you're like, oh no, what if, and I'm putting words in your mouth, but what if there's a rejection? You know, so when we look at the body is constantly giving us information. And so when you're stepping into your gutsy moves, which you help people do, I guarantee they are simultaneously dealing with some type of health challenge. And that challenge is there because their body is saying, go for it, do it. So thank you for sharing that. Because
of course,
I love breaking that stuff down.
Oh, listen, I can nerd out on some energy work, that's for sure. And everything that you said is 1,000% true. Yeah. You know, I wasn't fully speaking, so it's no wonder my antibodies for my thyroid literally went off the chart. I landed in the ER because I was having heart palpitations so bad that I thought I was dying. And I'm not exaggerating here. It was scary. You know, with the weight of the physical weight. I think it also came with the weight of change, the weight of what if, but also stepping into a limelight, right? Stepping into a spotlight, and not that just from a space of people are going to see me more, right? People are going to hear me more. In my creativity, through my spoken word, through my written word, my creativity was being stalled because I have all this stuff to share, but it wasn't going anywhere, right? Like, so everything you're saying, I'm nodding and I'm like, yep. I couldn't agree more. My body got very loud. And to be very, very transparent, it's taking some time to heal those things.
Yeah.
It's taking some time. I will say I'm very proud. My thyroid is back in check. So no antibodies, no signs of Graves anymore. That is back. And guess what? I'm speaking on a regular day. Isn't that interesting how that functions? So I appreciate you breaking that down.
Oh my gosh. I love that all for you. And you know what I love about the body and just how we evolve is like, you know, had you not gone through that challenge that you went through, and you're talking about gutsy moves and helping people step into something that may feel uncomfortable, sometimes it can be like, oh, well, it's easy for you because you've always been good at that thing, or you've always been successful, or, it's like almost like we're not immune to being insecure. We're not immune to, you know, being scared and, holding back, even though this is what we push people to do. And so I feel like there are always lessons that help us catapult because you were like running your own business, successful. So it's like, you're successful. Why rock the boat? And then you're like, LauraAura is gonna go up here. And so you had to you met that friction. So, and I'm sure, you probably still meet friction. We always do as we're leveling up constantly. So,
Yeah, and you brought out fear, which I'd like to dig into for a hot second if that's
yeah.
okay. There's a lot of messaging out there about doing things fearlessly. And I can see the intent behind that. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I just want to reframe it a little bit in that it's not normal to be fearless. It's not
Oh, yeah.
it's not normal to have zero fear. And I think that sometimes subconsciously it sends this message of, well, I'm afraid, so it's wrong, or I'm doing it wrong, or it's not the right timing. When you're making gutsy moves, fear is usually standing right next to you,
Yeah.
right next to you. If you're driving the car, it's sitting in the passenger seat, right? And sometimes it wants to grab the wheel. So if you're thinking that I have to do these things and be fearless, I want to say, what if we just welcome it to come along? What if we acknowledge that fear is part of the process? We're doing it with it, not necessarily holding ourselves back to wait to do it when it's not present. So if anyone's feeling that, I just felt called to share that.
I love that. So what are some things, my camera always goes on blurry. What are some things that you would propose to people if they are letting fear dictate their leveling up, their level of success, and how they're showing up in the world?
Well, I would first get to know what kind of fear it is because fear gets a bad rap, rightfully so. I mean, it has its moments, but it also keeps us safe. So is the fear like a human instinct from a space of like something's not right? Or is it a fear of change, the fear of evolution? And this goes right back to where we started with the body. Notice where you feel it. I have this little trick I call bricks or butterflies. When you're talking about where you feel your intuition, you can use this to where am I feeling my fear? Because an intuitive no or a true fear of saying like, hey, stop, pause, revisit, is usually a lower, heavy, sinking feeling like a bag of bricks, like something's not quite right. You can't put your finger on it, but it's like going to put your hand on a hot stove, that kind of resistance.
Yeah.
That's fear saying, hey, I need you to evaluate something.
Yeah.
Whereas butterflies are usually light, airy, further up in your body, kind of like you're on a roller coaster. You're excited, you want to put your hands up, and also you want to puke a little bit at the same time. That's the good fear of saying, hey, like I'm a little nervous,
Yeah.
I'm a little uncertain, but there's something behind this for me. So start to acknowledge in your body, what does fear look and feel like? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it giving you the butterflies? Right?
Yeah.
If you get to know what that feels like in you, you can kind of get a direction of like, hey, I actually need to pause and revisit this, or I don't know, there's something kind of nerve-wracking behind this, but I feel like I want to go for it. And then trust that. My gosh, I will scream it from the rooftops. Trust both of them because your intuition and your body never lie to you.
1000%. I love that. And I love bricks and butterflies. I may steal that from you. I think that is fantastic. That's so great. I always think of like, so I'm quote unquote afraid of heights, but I know this is just a misconception in my mind. So even if I'm hiking there, and I went and walked
not walked. I literally climbed up this hill really steep twice this morning. I don't know why I do this to myself because I never want to do it. But I know once I'm done doing it, I'm like, good job, pat yourself on the back. But when I go early in the morning and it's dark, I can't see the drop-offs.
Mm.
And I just power up it. And one day I went with my kids and I took them during the day. And I found myself being like, oh gosh, oh, I have to be more careful. Oh, because I could see the drop-off. And it was like, it's all an illusion in my mind. Both instances, I was safe and I was fine. And so we let that what could happen stifle us and slow us down, which is like, it's so wild that we allow that to happen when we very well know, when we're trusting our intuition, when we're trusting ourselves, like you said, like there's no stopping, right? Like there's no doubt in my mind, because I can feel it from your energy, like you are going to the top where you're speaking. Right. And so the more we like stay in alignment, I feel like the less fear, like you said, it would be in the seat, it could be in the passenger seat. I like how you described that. I could like picture my fear, but I'm just like,
I see you over there.
I see you, but it's like, it's just like, just there. It doesn't have to mean anything. And so it's the meaning that we're giving the fear that, I think slows us down the most. So when, okay, before so you had your business, but was there any time before that you realized like you took some gutsy moves? Like what were some of like the gutsy moves that you've made in your life?
Oh, wow. I could write a book on this in its own, which is in the works, by the way, so stay tuned for that. Honestly, if I think back to one of the first two gutsy moves that I made was one when I left home at 17.
Hmm.
So I grew up in an atmosphere that was not loving, nurturing, was quite toxic in many different ways. And I took a chance and I applied for college early before I was technically able to. I graduated high school at the age of 17, so I was a younger person in my graduating class. And most people, you wait to the fall or whatever. And I was like, I got to get out of here. Like it's time to go. My husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, we've been together for 25 years, was going to go to college as well. Our colleges happened to be right next to each other, which was very convenient. But I applied to the school, I got accepted, and we moved out, and I was 17 years old, and that's early, right? That's young, that's early, super naive in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
But again, I just knew to kickstart my life, to find the freedom that I knew that I deserved, I had to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the earliest gutsy moves that I made. Probably one of the second big ones is I quit my full-time job as a, wait for it, yellow page phone book ad designer. Let's put a timestamp on that.
Yeah.
I designed the ads in the phone book. I quit that job when I was 6.5 months pregnant to start that first business. And again, it was just another one of those, it's time to go. I'm not in the right atmosphere. I got what I needed from here. Everything about my being is telling me it's time to move forward and it's time to make the gutsy move. So those are probably the big ones that stand out to me.
Yeah.
In the beginning. But it's also things like my mental health is not doing great at one point in my life, and I need help. I need support. So a gutsy move was signing up for therapy and going.
Mhm.
A gutsy move is having a child and having no idea what you're doing. That's a gutsy move. You know what I mean? Nobody knows what they're doing when they have kiddos, right?
No, we still don't know. I got a 15-year-old, 12-year-old. I'm like, I'm just playing it day by day.
Yeah, exactly. And even down to things like, hey, I want to wear something that's new and funky, and I don't know what other people are going to say or think about this, but you know what? I feel pretty fly in this,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna do it. That's what I love about gutsy moves is sometimes it is the big stuff, oftentimes it is, but we discount those small gutsy moves that actually make a bigger difference.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so good. I think what's interesting is we have this society that tells us how to be, when to do things, when not to do things, how things should look. And I'm a big proponent to create your life however you desire it, right? Like, so you want to move out at 17. Okay. That's totally gutsy. And, to each their own. But I think that, see, here my camera goes again. I thought I was being all great, getting like this 4K camera. And I'm like, I can't.
It fights you every step of the way.
It really does. And I'm like, can we get in sync, please? So I haven't given up hope on it, but I'm getting closer every podcast I record.
Maybe it's a setting issue.
I thought that, and I've got it and I've looked, and I think it's just I need to spend more than like $100.
Sometimes that's it too.
Gutsy move and a little bit more cash.
There you go.
My camera. But anyways, I think it's just, when we have the confidence in ourselves to just be unapologetically who we are, and I can parent how I parent, I can have my relationship with my husband, my career, however I desire to have that. That's where we forget. It's like you get to choose your life. You get to choose how you want to do this thing called life. And as long as you're not hurting other people and you're not being an asshole, like,
Truth.
go for it. Like, go for it. So, I moved out at 18, but I moved across the country with whatever I could fit in my car at 22 years old, didn't know a soul where I moved to, slept on a floor for 2 weeks so I could afford to buy a mattress, and, just did what I could do. And I was like, oh, you're moving. Oh, you're doing this. What about that? Da, da, da. And I just remember hearing everybody's comments, and that gave them space in my mind. And looking back at that, I'm very cautious now of like, am I giving space to these criticisms or these thoughts or, whatnot? And so how do you like navigate that with, well, one, you're a public speaker, right? So you continuously create a bigger target on your back, as do I, right? Like,
Yeah.
the more gutsy you get, the more I feel like we can trigger other people and they get uncomfortable. So how do you navigate that with, I don't know, do you deal with criticism? Do you deal with, others' voices? Are you human like me and it gets you, or what?
Well, I'm a human. Don't get it twisted. I'm a human. I've spent many of days and hours questioning myself and overthinking what somebody said or the tone that they used or a comment that I got. I still get tripped up from time to time. I will say it's gotten a lot better. And, I just want to acknowledge that it's often those outside voices and expectations that lead to the reason why we stop. Because when you get an idea and you're just like, this you're in, right? Like you're doing the work, you're moving forward, and then you're like, you happen to tell somebody because you're excited about it. And then it's like,
That's a great voice.
thank you. And they, how are you gonna do it? And what are you gonna do next? And what about this thing? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about those things. And it plants in your brain and then it grows and then you have a shit show, right? Mm-hmm. So one, I'm very, very conscious about who I tell what. Not everybody's intended to hear all your ideas. Mm-hmm. And I've also shifted that, it's not that these people are necessarily trying to stop you. It's their own fear about what you're doing. They're seeing that for their own life and they're like, I can't or wouldn't do that, and it scares me, and so now I'm projecting that to you. Yeah. So it's our job to say like, hey, separation, that's actually your fear and I don't have to absorb that. So that's a really important thing. The second, I'll tell you, I'm in one of these right now with the online comments. You talk about putting a target on your back. Part of being a speaker is speaking. Clearly, that's what we do. And part of being gutsy is speaking about hard things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that, gutsy has become my life, my mantra, the way that I live. And I'm always presented with opportunities and obstacles and learning lessons about being gutsy. And so I'm fairly vocal about what I stand for. I'm fairly vocal about supporting women's rights and lots of other things that are happening in current day events. And I talk about it. I didn't always, because I was like, oh, what if people don't like me and I'll lose followers? I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
If I don't stand up for what I believe in, then I stand for nothing.
That's right.
And so part of being a gutsy speaker is talking about gutsy things. And girl, the comments are flying these days. But what's interesting and different now between like maybe 5 years ago is now I literally laugh at them.
Yeah.
It's like oil and water. It just bounces off. I don't absorb it because I'm like, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
And I know what I stand for, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm sorry that you have this level of misery in your life that you would go out of your way to put down another human. I don't play that game. So but it comes with time. 5 years ago, I would have been crying on my couch.
Yeah.
No joke, so it just kind of takes some time to start separating yourself that like, hey, that's actually not me. Just because that comment is coming at me, or that perspective or that opinion is coming at me, doesn't mean that I have to take it.
Yeah.
I don't have to absorb it. I don't have to make it mean anything about me. And the more you're in alignment with yourself, the more that stuff just bounces right off of you.
Yeah, 1000%. And I think too, like one thing I've learned is surrounding myself with other people, and especially women who are like, yes, I want to see you rise. When you're with other women that are willing to, one, share their platform with you, lift you up. Like I do free community events here in Bakersfield, and I've done these panels and brought a lot of women into a space with an audience and interviewed them so they could show their genius, right? So they could share at an elevated experience. And it's like, it's the most energizing thing ever. Like I just did a live podcast with a local gal who one, she runs this amazing company, and she's fascinating. Found herself, I'm gonna give you the cliff notes. Found herself coming home at like 8 o'clock at night. Her babysitter had already left. Her child was like, "Mommy, I'm hungry." She was a workaholic, realized like, I need to make a change. Went into her closet, started bawling, called her therapist. Her therapist said, "You need yoga." She's like, "Really? I effing need yoga? Like, I need a lot more than yoga." She goes to her yoga class. There's this, skinny little yogi stretching. And she's like, "I hate you pretty much because I'm here. I don't want to be. I'm doing it because my therapist said to be here." She should say these things, but she's thinking this in her head. And then she found herself stretching and found herself crying on the yoga mat. I was like, I do not know what is happening right now. And slowly she started to find herself again and her confidence. And the wildest part of the story is she went to this conference and met this lady, and she ended up flying back and forth once a month to New York to be a dominatrix.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
Right? And it was all about, and she has her PhD and her doctorate in like human psychology and like how the brain works, but everything that she was learning through like the dominatrix setting was all about negotiation. And she's in business, like, so negotiation and confidence and speaking up. And I mean, it was just like absolutely amazing, like the things that she's done and what she's went through. And I'm like, girl. But anyways, it was great because we were recording a live podcast, invited, some other girlfriends to come. And it was like just so much fun. It's just so much fun to share space with other women and let their voices be heard, because women are powerful.
Absolutely. And you know what I love most about that? I bet that was so easy.
Yes.
So easy. Not discounting, logistics and technology and all that. Like that comes along with it, but like being happy and being with good people is easy.
Yes.
It rattles my brain how hard and gnarly and complicated it is to be a jerk. or
Yeah.
to be rude or to put out hate in this world. Like that takes so much energy. It is so easy to support people.
Yes.
It's
Oh
so
my
easy to love on people and high five them and give them a space or a platform. Like we could have that. I
Yeah.
don't understand why we're still having this conversation, people, but let us be those people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna trust that the people that are listening here today are saying like, I'm one of those people, right? I'm by doing well with me, that also amplifies my ability to do well by others. Because
Yeah.
when you're happy, when you're taken care of, when you're satisfied, when you feel nurtured, you're able to give that forward. Like that is the greatest gift that you can give to this world, is to be happy for yourself, because that amplifies your ability to help others be happy too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. Yeah. And that's, yeah, when you surround yourself with people like that, like the trolls, like they don't, it's like they're not even existing. Like it's the wildest thing, But I mean, I used to be that person that I was raised in sports. So I did a lot of sports. So I had this mindset that if I wanted to win, someone else had to lose.
Mm,
And if you bring that into adulthood, that does not work.
no.
Right. So it would be like, I would look at other people being successful and think, oh my gosh, like I have to be better than them. Like I'm a loser. What am I doing in my life? I'm far behind. Like, how do I get better than them? And it was like, I had the most screwed up way of looking at things. And it was like, no, how do I join them? How do I learn from them? How do I seek the knowledge that they have to get them to that space? And how do I keep amplifying in my own unique way? But I think that also comes with like age.
I mean, at age and experience, how many times too are we in that space of like, oh, someone else is already winning, so now I can't,
Yeah.
because it's already been done.
Right. Right.
How many millions of self-help books are out there? How many millions of meditation guides are out there? Like there's something for everyone. And so just because someone else is winning or has, kind of quote unquote taken that space, doesn't mean there isn't space for you.
Yeah.
Like you said, how do I join them? How do I do this my own way? Because the way that you do it might be exactly the way that someone's looking for it. There's just space for everything and everyone if we allow it to be.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. And that's why, I mean, we all have our own unique blueprint and soul's mission to show up in this world and do it in our own way. We're not supposed to be like anyone else. We are absolutely 0% supposed to be like somebody else. Other people, we can look to them for inspiration, but we're supposed to do it in our own unique blueprint way. And I think the more we step into that, that's when we really shine. And that's when we start attracting those that truly need us because we're in that alignment. And I think it just, it takes some time. It takes some courage. It takes some gutsy moves. It takes so much to get there because of all the noise around us. But it's such a sweet spot to be in.
It is, and it's fun, and it gets to be easy, and you attract the right people. I mean, it's just great all around. You attract the right opportunities. I think about when I really fully embrace being a speaker. I would be lying if I didn't say, how other people speak cross my path.
Oh yeah.
And I speak differently. I've got a different tone. I've got a different fire and spunk in me. Like, oh, do I need to, if I'm going to talk to corporations, for instance, do I need to kind of tighten it up or button it up a little bit? And then I was like, hold on a second, Laura.
Yeah. No, don't.
We're not going into we're not going into this trying to be something else. We've done that plenty of times. So let's come back to the right people will hire you because of who you are and the message that you have and how you present yourself. And so whatever business or industry that you're in, remember that. You don't have to conform to who's around you and where you want to be. Be yourself and enter those spaces, and the right opportunities are going to be like, hell yeah, let's do this.
Oh my God, I love you. That's so good. Yes, that's fantastic. I found myself doing the same thing. I even had a coach once tell me, she's like, you need to like just really get that doctorness out and giving like even more facts and like all of this. And I'm like, that's not what I do. I explain things in a way that people can digest and process them. And then I thought, oh my gosh, do I need to be more analytical? And I like got in my head about this. And then I was no, it's like it doesn't align. You have to go with your blueprint for sure. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so what would be some tips that you give people? Say they're like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but literally I am paralyzed to make a decision or to make that gutsy move. Because I know at one point I felt like literally paralyzed. Like I felt like I couldn't make the decision.
Mm.
What do you say, or how could you encourage someone when they're feeling that way?
So indecision is one of the top things that stops people. And in that space of indecision where you're back and forth, it's black and white, you're tug and war, right? Like however you want to call it. That's where the mind loves to just parade around. That's where you come up with all these thoughts and excuses and scenarios, and it's just a breeding ground for crappy thoughts. So my first tip is I want you to get really focused on getting very clear about what you actually want. It's a big question. Most people are like, I have no idea. No one's ever asked me that before. I haven't slowed down. I haven't allowed myself to go there, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a sense of vulnerability with that, especially if you're talking about making a big gutsy move, like a career change or a relationship shift. Like, you got to get really honest, because half of the reason why you're not deciding is because you're not clear. You're just like pointing in all different directions, and then you're doing a bunch of things and it's not going anywhere. And wow.
No one's coming to save you.
No, they're really not. I promise you. Except maybe this episode.
Yeah, right.
So my first recommendation is ask yourself, what do I actually want? And be very honest with yourself. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to write it down. You don't do anything, right? I just want you to get very honest with yourself about what it is that you actually want. Because when you do that, now we can make a decision. Now we can decide. And deciding doesn't mean you got to flip the table over today.
Yeah.
Deciding doesn't mean that you got to like burn everything down. Deciding means I'm willing to take one next step towards this. So that's the next piece, is what is one next step that you can take towards this? If it's shifting a career, is it updating your resume? Is it fine-tuning your LinkedIn page, right? Like, we underestimate those tiny moves. Again, these are gutsy moves. But this time it's in the direction of the thing that you want instead of scatterbrained all over the place. And then we gotta keep going. I think that an underestimated place that we don't talk about a lot is in the space of continuing. Getting started is one thing. Continuing is a whole nother animal.
Yeah.
Well, this is where you have to really nurture what you're saying to yourself, catching that mind junk that tries to talk you out of it before you even get started, or when you're in the middle of something, catching and shifting those thoughts in the moment when you're questioning your abilities, or if I really want to do this, or how can I want you to notice it. I see you. This is what I want. Give yourself some sort of reframe, some sort of statement, something that allows you to lock back into, why am I doing this? So if nothing else, know why you're doing this. Why is this important to you? Because when your brain gets squirrely, if you lock back into why you're doing this, it's often enough to kind of ground you back in the space so that you can then take one more next step forward.
I love that. That's so good. And starting small. I love how you said start small, just take that one step, because that's what starts to build momentum. And I think too, one thing I've noticed is when we talk to clients about like, what is it that you really want? And they do. Some people have a really hard time. Like, they just know they're not happy, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if all your problems were to go away tomorrow and you woke up, what would you do? And they can't answer that. So I love how you said, like, get very clear on what it is you want and take that time to do that. And I think another aspect of that is like, do it without judgment.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like, well, what I really want is to literally take 2 days away from my family and children to like get my shit together. Do not judge yourself for that, like, at all. Like, so I think that that's the other thing is like, when we're having these conversations with ourselves, sometimes we're meeting them with judgment. So it's like, what's possible if you totally did not judge yourself, did not have any rules, did not judge yourself, but ask yourself, what is it I really want? And you hit it on the head when you said that there's a vulnerability piece there, because we can't lie to ourselves. And if we do, that feels the worst. That's like having like no integrity. And so if you actually discover that you're not happy, I mean, say it's in your marriage or in a relationship, or I had a client the other day who's engaged and is literally getting sicker by the day because she doesn't know how to like break it off. Like she feels like she has zero ability to say this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that judgment piece too is like, oh, we could free ourselves if we just let that go.
Yeah. And something else that's coming up that I want to share real quick is, when we're saying, what do you actually want? I can hear some people be like, I want to lay on the beach all day and drink Mai Tais. I'm like, okay, a lot of us want that.
Yeah.
Is that the reality? Like, is that truly what you want? Or is that a fantasy of some sort of escape? Right? If it's truly what you want, okay, how are we setting up a business so that you have reoccurring revenue that affords you to be able to do that? Are we shifting jobs? Are we shifting locations? Are you willing to take the steps to actually have that?
Yeah.
So we have to be very realistic too. I'm not saying to put a cap on things, but like, is that what you actually want? Or is it freedom in your life somewhere else that maybe you could take more vacations throughout the year? You know what I mean? So
Totally.
there's some self-reflection that needs to go into this. It's not always, sometimes it's very clear. Sometimes it's not, but start looking at the areas of your life where you feel consistently pulled or drained or worried or unhappy with. Those are the areas that if you start to get really clear about what you want instead, you can really make some big moves in your life.
I love that. Well, I'm so glad we had you on today. I hope this motivated some people to make some gutsy moves. And I'm really grateful to have you on. Can you share with everybody where they could find you, where they could connect with you if they're trying to step into their gutsy self?
Yeah, absolutely. LauraAura.com is the hub for all things me. That's where you can learn about my programs, and all my social links are on there. But also, if you want to hear me in your head a little bit more each week, the Gutsy Podcast is a great next step. I'm every week teaching people how to make those gutsy moves, how to get out of your own way, and ultimately do the stuff that you really want to do.
Love it. LauraAura, thank you so much for joining me on the Happy Whole You podcast.
Thank you.